The British Navy was considered at the time as the most powerful in the world. The Atlantic Ocean was the scene of the most important battle of the Second World War.
70 years after vanishing into the Atlantic, the Bismarck is still making noise, literally.
Bismarck is a quantum leap for the Germans, and no question. Bismarck is as capable as anything that the British have got.
New thermal drones revealed glowing human-shaped silhouettes inside sealed chambers, while hydrophones picked up rhythmic metallic ticks from deep within the hull.
You can see the shape of it on the sonar on the right.
This looks like the slide scar to me.
Then came the final image, a tall, glowing figure standing upright in the wreck, just before the feed cut to black. Whatever the Bismarck took down with her may not be resting quietly. The steel giant sleeps. Beneath the Atlantic's restless skin, almost 5 kilometers down, rests a colossus that once terrified the oceans. The Bismarck, Hitler's pride. She was discovered in 1989 by Robert Ballard's team, the same man who found the Titanic. They located her upright, eerily intact, about 4,790 meters beneath the surface, roughly 470 miles off the coast of Brest. That deep light gives up. Pressure climbs past 480 bars. But somehow, she's still enduring. The hull, still largely whole. Her secondary guns, still in place. Bridge structure, recognizable, though encrusted. The conning tower stands like a frozen crown above it all. And that's not common. Most shipwrecks this old and this deep don't hold together like this. And here's where it gets stranger. Bismarck's main gun turrets didn't make it. Those detached during the descent and now sit upside down nearby like fallen guardians. But one part hits different. The armored citadel, the thick, brutal midsection meant to protect her engines and ammo, shows no major penetrations. None above. None below. That suggests her most critical systems might have stayed sealed right up until the end. And the seabed? It tells a story. She didn't just sink. She dragged. Geologists say she may have slammed into the side of an extinct undersea volcano and skidded nearly a kilometer across the sediment. That she lies upright isn't just dramatic. It's unsettling, as if she's sleeping, watching. But down here, in pressure that would crush a human flat in seconds, nothing really sleeps. Over time, even the strongest steel starts to deform. It breaks from within. And the sea never rests. Currents, corrosion, shifting sediment. It all takes its toll. Yet somehow, inside the wreck, things remain shockingly preserved. Drones have slipped through ruptured hull plates and filmed rooms that look more abandoned than destroyed. Stairwells still connected. Pipes still bolted in place. Even boot prints in the silt. And then there's the human side. Coins, torn uniforms, letters. Small personal items scattered in pockets of open space. Nothing staged. Nothing moved. Some believe the Bismarck took secrets down with her. Others think she hides more than steel. Some say the shadows down there move when no submersible is watching. But one theory, one piece of tech, cut through all that speculation. Because recently, a drone came back from that deep trench with thermal imaging data. And what it found didn't just challenge logic. It cracked open a whole new chapter of the mystery. Why thermal imaging was even deployed? So here's the thing. Thermal imaging wasn't supposed to work at this depth. 5 kilometers beneath the surface, in water so cold it hovers around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, heat signatures should vanish. Infrared radiation? Practically useless down here. And yet, someone sent a drone down there anyway, equipped with heat-sensitive sensors. The first question everyone asked, why? Turns out, there were reasons. And they weren't just technical, they were forensic. Microbial decay gives off heat. That's a known fact in forensic science. On land, thermal drones have been used to locate decomposing bodies because bacteria, maggots, and microbial metabolism generate subtle warmth during breakdown. Now take that same concept and place it inside the sealed steel belly of a warship, a place where air, oils, leather, even human remains could have been trapped in pockets for decades. The theory? If something organic was sealed in, then microbial life might still be active in microclimates. And even in the freezing dark, tiny traces of heat might persist long enough for high-sensitivity cameras to catch them. Then there's the tech leap. Modern underwater drones are no longer clunky toys. They've got cooled sensors, low-noise circuitry, and specially calibrated instruments that can function even under insane pressure. A few research teams have been testing deep-water imaging that doesn't just see shape, it picks up tiny fluctuations in temperature. Not glowing blobs, but heat gradients. Still, critics thought it was a long shot. The ocean equalizes heat fast, and the thermal resolution at those depths? Barely functional. And then you have the fringe ideas. What if Bismarck had carried an experimental coolant system? Not nuclear, but something advanced. Something German scientists had been working on and never documented publicly. If sealed tight and still decaying chemically, it might emit a detectable thermal echo even now. Thermal imaging was risky. Most experts thought it would fail, but it didn't. Because when that drone hovered over the mid-hull section and began to sweep the camera, something unexpected appeared on the monitors. Heat signatures, organized, geometric, aligned with internal architecture. Not random blobs, but rectangular patches, like compartments glowing beneath layers of steel. Interior re-entry shocks engineers. Once they confirmed the heat signatures were real, there was only one move left: breach. The team selected a section near the mid-hull, one of the strongest anomalies. The probe deployed a micro-drill and breaching probe, pushing carefully into a warped panel. The idea was simple: peek inside, collect temperature data, maybe spot corrosion or microbial growth. But what the cameras showed? Inside the breached space, the robot's lights revealed something that felt impossible. The room was mostly intact, corridors lined with piping, stairwells still connected, bulkheads sealed but uncollapsed. No major cave-ins, just layers of silt suspended in still water, like a dust storm frozen in time. And then came the shocker. Along the floor, against the walls, curled near corners and bunk frames, shapes, but not random. These were human in form, limbs tucked, bodies crouched or slumped, some seated, others angled in fetal positions, silhouettes of arms, legs, spines, glowing faintly warmer than the surrounding metal. Engineers froze. Operators blinked in disbelief. One shape was curled under a staircase, another was leaning against a doorframe. Two more appeared side by side, overlapping, like one had collapsed onto another. Some were tucked far from exits, as if they never made it to the hatches. Thermal sensors don't just make up data. These were consistent. Rescans from different angles showed the same readings. Temperature deltas of 0.1 to 0.3 degrees Celsius. Tiny, yes, but too stable to be dismissed as noise. So what were they? Some suggested thermal shadows, residual heat trapped in clothing, flesh, or oil that became insulated over time. In cold, pressurized environments, certain materials can hold thermal memory. The idea is controversial, but in theory, possible. Others had darker theories. What if these were the remains of crew who sealed themselves inside, hoping for rescue, hoping to wait out the worst, but the compartments became tombs. Over time, Decomposition and mineral reactions could create slow chemical heat, barely enough to leave a fingerprint. Skeptics fired back. Maybe these were imaging flukes, metal distortion, glare, interference from wiring or sediment. But even then, why did the shapes appear exactly in crew quarters? Why were they in sleeping positions? Why were the thermal outlines not just repeated, but uniquely shaped? Each one different. The shapes weren't near hatches. They weren't in escape paths. They were deep inside, as if the crew never tried to run. Or worse, couldn't. And then came the corridor. One shape stretched from one room into the next, crossing bulkhead walls. It didn't make sense, unless something moved it after death, or pushed it through a rupture. Black box surprise and Nazi secrecy. During the third dive, just as the team began sweeping the forward operations center near the mid-hull, the robotic arm snagged something unexpected. Tucked beneath a collapsed panel, wedged between warped beams and loose cabling, was a cylindrical object. It was matte black, heavily reinforced, about the size of a thermos, but shaped more like an aircraft data recorder. That caught everyone off guard, because in 1940, when the Bismarck set sail, black boxes weren't standard, and certainly not in German surface vessels. Carefully extracted and brought topside under sterile conditions, the object was unlike anything logged in naval inventories. Its casing was corrosion-resistant, layered in a composite material far more advanced than the typical steel or aluminum used by the Kriegsmarine. Inside, scans revealed tightly wound coils, sealed vacuum tubes, and etched metallic plates, something like analog memory banks. This wasn't scrap. It was designed, but for what? German naval records, Allied intelligence reports, and all known Bismarck schematics make no mention of any such device. The Tirpitz, her sister ship, didn't carry one. No other known warships of the era had anything close. Speculation surged. Some believed it was a prototype sensory device, meant to monitor deep-sea pressure, shock waves, or even radiation. That theory pulled attention toward the Nazi Uranverein program, Germany's failed but real attempt at atomic research. While it's widely accepted they fell behind the Allies in the nuclear race, there were documented experiments in neutron bombardment, heavy water collection, and uranium enrichment. Could this canister have been part of a passive test system? A sensor for radioactive decay? Or maybe even a chemical tracer for internal munitions? Others floated a theory linked to Operation Bernhard, the massive Nazi counterfeiting scheme meant to sabotage the British economy. That effort required extreme chemical precision, atmospheric control, and tracking. Could this object have had something to do with that? But there's a deeper wrinkle. Why was it hidden? It wasn't stored in an equipment bay or maintenance locker. It was buried beneath a false panel, wedged behind a steel beam like someone didn't want it found. One declassified OSS report from the 1950s even mentioned an old rumor. The Bismarck was carrying more than guns and pride. No context, no follow-up. Now, that line hits different. This device shouldn't exist. And yet, there it is, resting in a lab. But just as engineers started probing its layers, something else happened. Something stranger than any sensor coil or wire trace. The drone sent deeper into the officer's deck picked up its final feed. And what it saw froze the entire command room. What really haunts experts: the final feed. After logging the strange thermal signatures and recovering the canister, the team sent the drone deeper, toward the officer's deck. One section near the forward conning tower showed a persistent anomaly, slightly warmer than its surroundings, same as before. They guided the unit in. Pressure was steady. Visibility, surprisingly clear. The feed remained sharp. Until it didn't. A few dropped frames. static blips, then longer skips, stuttering visuals. The drone slowed, almost like it was hitting drag. Operators chalked it up to sediment disruption, maybe stirred by the drone's own propellers. But then it crossed the last pressure door, partially collapsed, and slipped into a narrow compartment. That's when the image froze. A debris-covered chamber, paint peeling off the metal, a shattered locker door swinging halfway open, and in the center, a figure, not a blur, not a shadow. A full, upright thermal outline, humanoid in shape, but off. Too stiff in the spine. One arm lifted mid-motion, the head slightly tilted, elongated, and glowing. Teams scrambled to isolate the signal. Was it interference? Echo from the drone? A fault in the thermal contrast? Number. The figure was centered, symmetrical, consistent across all sensor channels. When filters were stripped, the glow remained. When brightness was adjusted, the shape stayed solid. This was no software glitch. Some said it might have been a recently exposed body, preserved, and only just warmed by shifting currents. But at this depth? After more than 80 years? That didn't track. Others guessed it was thermal backscatter, heat from the drone bouncing off a mirrored surface. But this figure wasn't distorted or split. It was clean, upright. And then, right as one of the operators leaned in to adjust the feed, the signal cut. Attempts to send the drone back into that same corridor failed. Sediment slides had shifted. A partial collapse, maybe. Sonar suggested the path had closed. Debris now blocked the approach entirely. No way back. Just one frozen image. One frame that analysts have reviewed dozens of times. Every pass raises more questions. Was it a crew member? A distorted remnant? Or something else entirely? And that's the part no one wants to say out loud. What if it wasn't human? What if the pressure, the heat, the decay transformed something or preserved it? And somewhere down there, under thousands of meters of water and 80 years of silence, something is still warm. Something is still waiting. The hull that hums. The team changed senses. If sight failed, they would listen. They lowered a free-drifting hydrophone array and a compact flux gate magnetometer, holding position along the wreck's starboard shadow, where currents ease for a few precious minutes each hour. The goal was simple: catch the wreck in the act of being alive, if only through the faintest tremor. The first returns were not random ocean roar. A narrow, steady tone rose from the noise floor. Infrasound. A low note, almost a breath, centered near 0.8 hertz, with a thinner overtone near 2 hertz. Then, a second family of sounds, short metallic ticks, arrived in uneven clusters. Engineers ran fast resonance checks against Bismarck's known dimensions. A hull this long and this stiff should have natural bending modes in the infrasound band when pushed by shearing currents. The math lined up. The tone matched what the structure would sing if great plates flexed by fractions of a millimeter. But the pattern had teeth. Those tick clusters did not arrive on a tide's lazy rhythm. They came in bursts that mapped to interior geometry. Strongest when the array drifted a beam of the mid-hull, softer toward the stern break. Layer the hydrophone tracks over the thermal scan, and the picture sharpened. Warm zones, then ticks, then a faint rise in the infrasound note, as if a hidden chamber took a breath and settled. Creep becomes sound. Sound becomes map. During one quiet window, the array recorded a sequence so clean it silenced the control room. 3 tight ticks, 1 long scrape. Pause, repeat. Not code, the analysts said. Just friction taking the same path through the same warped joints. Then the magnetics flared. The flux gate showed minute swings, not wild, just measurable, peaking with the tick bursts. Corrosion and stress can drive microcurrents along hull seams. Shifting contact points make and break those circuits. Electrical whispers, in step with mechanical ones. One pass brought the array close to the officer's deck, the same corridor where the final thermal frame had burned itself into everyone's mind. The tone rose a hair, the ticks bunched. A soft, drawn-out scrape threaded through like a bow across a cello string. The operators froze. Same place, same pressure door line, a different sense, telling the same story. Skeptics will say, currents do this. And they are right. Currents start the song. But the consistency is the puzzle. What does it mean? Maybe nothing more than metal yielding to time. Or maybe the ship is doing work inside. Microslides along frames, corrosion fronts advancing, trapped gases shifting in sealed pockets. Movements so small a camera misses them, but the water hears them all. Could the Bismarck be holding a secret meant to outlast time itself? Subscribe now and tell us in the comments what you believe is really stirring inside that wreck.